Neurontin and seeing if GABA does actually go to Neurontin in a metabolic pathway. See what I mean? We don't know that. Gabriel doesn't know that because that's a very specific question.
Okay, thank you.
So look it up and and let me know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Cousins, would it be healthier to replace salt with natural seasonings such as celery and tomatoes?
Interesting question. Well, first let's define salt. We don't mean Morton salt. We mean Celtic salt or Himalayan salt, which are uncooked and are in their ionic form. That's what you're saying, correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And the advantages, those are all at the level of 82 minerals. But that's really what we're talking about. They supply all the minerals. Now, celery is going to give you sodium. Okay, so I think some of both is good. But I think that another natural one would be the ground up sea vegetables that are dried, that are very, very high in all the minerals. That's another good substitute. Depends what you like. Salt has some advantages because salt keeps you hydrated, and particularly if you have adrenal insufficiency, which about 80% of the public does, you're going to have less secretion of a particular hormone, aldosterone, that regulates your minerals. So usually you don't produce enough aldosterone and you're losing minerals. So salt becomes very, very important in people with adrenal insufficiency. In fact, one of the signs which people don't really see is mineral insufficiency and dehydration in adrenal insufficiency, which is, as they say, about 80% of the people have. So these are really important points. So Gabriel says it's good to have salt. It doesn't necessarily get into your cells, and it's good to have other sources of minerals like your foods, which are already at the angstrom level. Salt is not at an angstrom level, but it helps the extracellular fluids. It builds them up and maintains them. So I think there's a balance of both there. That's a very good question. We're going to end on that because we're now into the spiritual questions. We have a list of questions people ask, but we give precedence to people on the phone asking questions because that's why you're listening. And but we have a list, and we will continue to ask those questions next time. So we'll build up the list and make sure people get their questions answered. These questions today were excellent, and we really thank you for it. So now we're going on to spiritual questions. Does anyone have any questions about spiritual life?
Wondering about end stages of cancer and what would you do for someone who's at that place where now they want to start embracing things, but who's to say whether it's really end stage? I mean, how would you take someone to that help to take someone to that place? I mean, maybe coming down to the tree of life, obviously.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to come to the tree of life for that. Really, the key. What's the gift to cancer? Okay. Cancer gives you time, if it's really end stage, meaning you're in a sense dying. Cancer gives you time to adjust your consciousness to embrace that next phase of your life. A sudden death doesn't give you that time. It doesn't give you that preparation time. So cancer in our society, where most people haven't been doing the spiritual work, is a real gift on that level. We want to be clear what we're saying. It's obviously not a comfortable gift, and nobody is necessarily initially ready to die. But given that, it is a gift in terms of preparation time. So the best way to work with somebody is really help them be okay with dying, and which is to get them meditating, get them open enough, because we find that particularly with the Shaktipat meditation, a lot of people start to have experiences of mystical death. so they lose their fear of death. Now, when you're not in fear when you die, that's the most important thing, because then you can focus on the most important thing when you're dying, which is the name of God. So you can focus on merging, because the teachings in most traditions are at the time of your death. If you can be conscious enough to be repeating the name of God, it will be a tremendous boon for you in your next lifetime, because that's the last thing you're thinking about when you leave your body. So it's a great, great benefit then to get people meditating, get people repeating the name of God, and then helping them be open and at peace with the process, and really empowering them to have a healthy death. A healthy death is like a healthy birth.
Right.
And once you get people into that way of thinking, it really improves the quality of their death. And Gabriel has spoken at almost every hospice on the east and west coast, particularly at the beginning of the hospice movement with the Yale New Haven being the first hospice, and has spoken there. And that's really what the teaching is that Gabriel gives, and it really makes sense, and it's been well received at the hospice level, that this is like an incredible opportunity to help people have a successful death. You know,
what if somebody, they say within, the mainstream community that they are like in stage or palliative, but they decide that no, they're not. Well,
well, that's a different issue.
So, like with someone with liver cancer, that they say, well, we're just bringing you to palliative care, and now all of a sudden they're willing to embrace. Where would you start with someone?
Okay, now maybe that was your initial question.
Sorry,
that's okay. I wanted to get the other part in, because that's more the spiritual part.
Because it is all part of it. They have to decide where they want to go.
And they also have to be in peace with it. Okay, whatever happens. Then there was a study that never really made it into the journals with NCD, and we don't really know quite how good it was, but it was with end-stage cancers.
Right.
And what they found, I think they had about 65 people end-stage, and I think after a year on NCD, I think there was 57 people who were still alive, and who had resolved their cancer. It was like a 78% success rate. Now that's non-invasive. It's not difficult. We don't recommend. We can't legally recommend NCD as treatment for cancer. We can only cite this one study and say that some of the researchers have found that you do 40 drops 4 times a day, and 4 times a day, or 10 drops an hour, and they have had some results with that. That's different doctors too. Gabriel doesn't really do a lot of work with cancer in that way, so what we do is get people on a live food diet, get them in an optimal setting to heal in general, and the detox and so forth. And then
you just put them immediately onto green juices and do a fast, and then the concern is they want to do NCD, but they don't know if that will affect the kidney.
No, the beauty of the NCD is it does not have a bad effect on the kidney. It chelates out all the junk stuff. It has some effect on the cancer cells, but specifically does not affect the kidney. Which reminds me of another point, we're getting back to nutrition, is that some iron does stimulate cancer, and leukemia cells need 1,000 times more iron to be sufficient so by cutting down on the iron, you won't stimulate the leukemia cells, which is kind of really interesting. So basically, the most important thing for cancer that we can offer here is getting people on the live food diet, which is very helpful, and give them the appropriate detox to get going on their system, getting them off sugar, because cancer cells need 10 to 50 times more sugar. That means no fruit as well.
What is NCD, for those of us who don't know?
It's a zeolite, a natural zeolite,